Dissidia is a franchise formed back on the PSP that featured Final Fantasy's heroes and villains fighting it out in a 3D arena. It was a fun series that gave fans a chance to pit their favourite characters against each other like Cloud and Lightning. With Dissidia Final Fantasy NT jumping to the PS4 and all its power, suddenly the game's characters and world looks better than ever, as well as sporting a new combat format to further diversify Dissidia from just being the usual fighting game. The final product is something almost definitely put to fans of the series, but at the same time the experience just doesn't feel fully thought out or implemented effectively by its developer Team Ninja. Being originally an arcade game in Japan, Final Fantasy NT includes every character from its roster as well as adding a couple of new ones for the console release, the most noticeable being Noctis for Final Fantasy 15. The total number of playable characters sits at 28, with at least one fighter to choose from all the main Final Fantasy games, although there isn't quite an even split between the hero and villain lineup. Every combatant has a moveset that closely relates to original abilities, and practically all of them look visually better than they have ever been before. The combat in Dissidia sports a system very unique from other fighting games. For starters, each battle takes place in an open environment from one of the Final Fantasy games. The stages dynamically change in the background and really show off how stunning a console release of this game can be. From FF8's Promised Meadow that changes between a bleak empty void to a gorgeous flower field, to Final Fantasy's known as Alexandria that plays out an epic moment from its respective story, each map has many visual impressive moments that make them a joy to see. When you're not gawking at the beautiful vistas, your goal is to take on your opponent in a system distinctive to this game, with a 3v3 fight where you only control one of the fighters. This system is most definitely different from other 3D fighting games and creates a whole new avenue of mechanics to learn and utilise. Suddenly you have to focus on your three opponents in order to find the weakest link or opportune moment to strike, as well as monitor your own teammates to ensure one isn't being slaughtered. This level of strategy has more in line with a MOBA than it does a traditional fighting game. As combat goes, there is a variety of important systems that need to be understood to defeat your enemy, the most important being the bravery and health points. Health is the easiest to grasp, with it literally representing how much damage you can take before you die. Bravery, on the other hand, represents how much damage you do, and your goal is to grow this as large as possible to potentially one-hit certain foes. The thing is, bravery points can also deplete on failed attacks or by the enemy attacking you, potentially leading to the meter being broken that gives the attacker a huge bravery boost and leaving the other defenseless. For every character, there are bravery and HP attacks that need to be used in unison in order to take down an opponent. Additionally, there are special EX moves that can be used to trigger certain abilities that have timers on them during battle, like health regen or deal them more damage. These perks can be swapped out between matches with quite a large amount to choose from that, when collaborating with different teammates, can be used to create more powerful combinations. Each character has their own third EX special move, and they can also unlock new HP attacks that can be swapped before going out on the battlefield. For the most part, flying around as a Final Fantasy character is a blast, pulling off very flashy moves that have custom timing and functionality. Characters are broken down into separate classes, such as Lightning being an assassin who is quick and nimble, making it easy to dodge attacks, or Terra who is a marksman and can easily take down opponents from afar. For the most part, no two characters are alike, often meaning you need to learn their specifics before you can use them effectively. There is a tutorial system, but it's mostly just about explaining the fundamental mechanics as opposed to acting as a practice mode. This lack of a training mode is quite disappointing, especially when many characters don't follow the same system. There's also a mogul who can give you hints in combat, but its signature high-pitched Kupo noise quickly becomes very annoying and they will have you turning off straight away. Most attacks are simple though, with essentially the bravery attacks being the most used in a given match, requiring different directional inputs or holding the button to charge up a move. Otherwise, you can defend or dodge attacks as you wait for the EX skills to become usable, or finding an opening to trigger your HP attacks. As every character is very different, to get better you're required to learn their specific attacks going from their range, timing, and even just how they are formed. The problem is, with this diversity of attacks, it doesn't actually feel like the game has been balanced properly. As expected, and continuing off the originals, the fan favourite characters are easiest and the most effective to play, often make some of the rosters seem poorly implemented. At the very least there are options, but there is most certainly a strong handicap being forced on yourself if you don't pick one of the more popular casts like Cloud. The upgrades as you level up are a lot simpler than what was found in previous Dissidias, with only new HP attacks being unlocked, but this does make the actual combat requirement easier to manage so you can just focus on the objective. In the game, the main mode is to fight a 3v3 battle, in which the goal is to be the first to defeat any of the enemy players 3 times collectively. This has you really needing to pay attention to what is going on with not only you, but every teammate and opponent to find the best openings. Ultimately, this means you're extremely reliant on your teammates, and a poorly managed team will almost always lose regardless of how good one player is. Being able to effectively manage to get a kill while preventing a weak teammate from dying is where the combat becomes more complex, especially because going for the weakest link is often the surest road to victory. It can be a bit frustrating having to rely on someone else in every match, but there are multiple ways to assist in battle that doesn't just involve getting the takedowns in. Other than being able to act as a distraction, a player can go and destroy a crystal when it randomly appears in battle that builds up your team's summon meter that when full can be used to call out a mighty assistant. Pulling from the most iconic Final Fantasy summons, epic and colossal figures like Odin or Ifrit can appear to rip through the opponent's defense. They can't actually defeat an enemy, but are most certainly a stunning sight to look at and can completely change the outcome of a match. When it comes to online, there's really only two significant options. Either play ranked 3v3 brawls in a formed party or solo, or set up your own custom matches. Playing ranked was problematic, with the netcode of Dissidia doesn't seem to be implemented well, and matchmaking often occurred for poor connections that led to literally pauses or huge slowdowns in movement and attack. This wasn't always the case, but since the game is so critical on timing, when it does happen, it is almost unplayable. Custom matches fared better because you could set up or search for games with a high connection speed. In general, this is more fun as you can build up a better camaraderie between multiple matches, as well as try out custom formats like 2v2 or 1v1. The game doesn't really reward you for playing this way though, with a bigger emphasis being on the ranked modes due to the experience and money it grants you. This was quite disappointing, and I wish they treated them the same or at least added these modes in as a ranked option. There's also another game format that you can play in custom maps that has you having to defend your core crystal while trying to destroy the enemies. A zone exists around each core that as long as a member of that team is in it, then it cannot be damaged. In turn, this creates a defend the base type mode that has some players having to act as defenders and others as attackers in order to win. It's a fun mode that offers even more possible strategies, but further highlights some problems with Dissidia's controls and format. First there is the HUD, that although is a lot more simplistic than its arcade counterpart, still has a lot going on. The problem is technically every piece of information displayed is important because of the level of strategic micromanagement needed in the game. When you play a 1v1 match though, it's suddenly so much more simple and most of the HUD is gone, although certain characters just don't stand a chance against each other, illustrating the balance problem. Even then, it makes me wish that this content could be a more prominent part of the game, as opposed to being sidelined. The other much bigger problem is the camera lock-on. You are always forced to lock onto an enemy or crystal and can switch between them by hitting your back triggers. This quickly becomes the biggest control issue to overcome, often locking onto enemies you had no interest of attacking. In core battles, it becomes very frustrating to focus on targeting enemies to knock them away from their crystal, only to target someone on the other side of the map. You gradually become more used to using it, but it is most definitely a learning curve, and even then it is never really intuitive. Other than playing online, all these modes can be played and replicated in single player with AI controlled partners. Sparring Match acts as an offline custom equivalent, enabling the builder to play every available mode. No rewards are given for winning matches though, so it really acts as this game's practice mode without any real tutorial indicators. Due to the game's format, there is also no local play mode, so in order to enjoy the game with friends, you must play online, which is unfortunate. The more substantial option offline is called Gauntlet mode, that is basically this game's version of arcade. It has you forming a team with AI to go through a collection of matches that enables the player to pick from a variety of options including difficulty level, enemy characters, and stage. This player choice allows you to build custom gauntlets that cater to your current skill level, but at the same time your AI needs to be leveled up, otherwise you will lose the match every time. They level up as you do, but the artificial wall created by constantly losing due to your AI partners being inefficient is a frustrating inclusion. Now already the features in this game are a bit on the lacking side, and unfortunately that is personified perfectly in the story mode. Rather than a huge RPG story with heaps of individual narratives and archives to get for each character like in previous Dissidias, this game has you using consumables called memorias, granted by playing the game, to unlock cutscenes and story fights. It is such a disappointing system, especially considering what came before, and removes any real connection or enthusiasm for the story presented. Not that the story is anything particularly compelling, but really just the setup of two gods calling all these Final Fantasy characters together to face each other to keep their world in balance. There are cool moments and fights between certain characters, but for the most part it feels like an afterthought to include it.
What did you do?
Don't you worry. Eventually, our goals will align.
The best aspect of the story is the fact that it unlocks fights with all summons featured in the game. These clashes are not only visually epic to look at, but are actually extremely challenging to defeat with huge health bars. Simply flying and attacking will not work, but instead you need to slowly deal bravery damage until the boss is stunned and then perform a powerful HP attack. Each boss has specific moves choreographed in multiple forms that must be memorized in order to find openings, and luckily only your 3 lives matter, with your teammates dying not deducting from the total. Although disappointed by the lacking story content, these fights still instill a great sense of accomplishment and make unlocking all the story worth it to experience them. Additionally, new story-themed gauntlets are unlocked that are mostly the same but need to be completed by a specific team, but otherwise there is not any more game modes to be enjoyed. There is a lot of customizable features though that can be attained by opening treasures that are of random loot items. Thankfully, they're only rewarded by playing the game and do typically give you some pretty awesome gear ranging from custom skins, avatars, and even songs. Additionally, it is possible to purchase the items you wish using gil obtained in the game, and both treasurers and gil are rewarded very fairly, especially when playing offline. Being able to customize your appearance is really cool, but my personal favourite feature is being able to create your own playlist of a large collection of classic Final Fantasy tracks. The actual Dissidia NT music is pretty good that goes for a more upbeat arrangement of classic tracks, but being able to use a collection of some of gaming's best music to battle to got me extremely hyped up for every fight. Like most aspects of this game, it is an option that will appeal merely to fans of the franchise, a goal that Dissidia best excels in.
Shall I give you despair?
I fight who I want, when I want.
This may be worthwhile after all.
Despite all its flaws, Final Fantasy Dissidia NT is a gorgeous game that strives to offer something unique from other fighting games on the market. Although it definitely achieves this, it can feel like you're often fighting against its mechanics in a fairly limited collection of modes that is all the more disappointing when compared to its past portable iterations. With what is here though, once you completely understand and master all its techniques, it becomes a fulfilling gaming experience that fans will love. Even without the fanfare, Dissidia NT presents a fun and versatile experience that just can't be found anywhere else. Thanks so much for watching this review, and if you enjoyed it then please subscribe for more gaming and geeky content.